On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been. Seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again.
In July 2001, my wife Terry and I took our second big road trip. Like the summer before, in our journey to the Pacific Northwest, we mapped out a route that would include a good deal of hiking and sightseeing. Our main goal was exploring the Canadian Rockies, but this trip had many other facets. It was an open-air time machine taking us back to the last ice age, and then fast-forwarding to Lewis and Clark's discovery of the Western Wilderness, and jumping again past the Indian Wars to a more recent history of my childhood travels with my parents. How could the Indians and doomed members of Custer's 7th Cavalry ever have dreamed of what would stand here exactly 125 summers later? The legend of this battle took on an importance that far overshadowed its historical significance. It took almost a century for the myth of Custer's heroism to be wiped from the lens of history to reveal a much sharper and darker picture. In an open landscape of heat, humidity, and dust, it's not hard to imagine how hostile this land must have felt underneath coarse wool and stiff leather. The epic importance placed on this battle by the Lakota and Cheyenne on one side and the U.S. cavalry on the other seems marginalized by tourists armed with video cameras and cell phones. Lines of cavalry and strings of Indian ponies have become wagon trains of TV-equipped motorhomes. There are now different lessons to be learned here. In my lifetime, this historic site has been renamed from the original Custer battlefield to the Little Bighorn battlefield to better reflect a more accurate assessment of history. The dashing cinematic view of Errol Flynn as Custer the hero has corroded to a different understanding of a vain, petty, glory-seeking opportunist who managed to not only get himself killed, but also that of his brothers, a nephew, and the rest of his battalion. People are quiet here as they struggle to connect historical fact with greater meaning. In somber voices, you overhear comments about Custer's stupidity and poor choice of tactics. Standing on the hillside where he died, your common sense tells you of this soldier's poor choice. There is no reverence here, simply puzzlement. Next to the visitor center is a military cemetery where the veterans of America's more recent past are buried. Their headstones rest beneath Custer Hill. Their shadows rise in heroism across the Montana plains. On road trips, some of the big surprises come from small detours. A couple hours north on the Little Bighorn and just off of I-90, Pompey's Pillar sits along the Yellowstone River. It's here that in July 1806, William Clark carved his name. Originally called Ishibilianachi, the place where the mountain lion dwells by the Crow, Clark named this Pompey's Pillar after Sacagawea's infant son.
On his way to the top to look around, he sees that Indians have been using this as a place to paint and carve, so he does the same thing. I mean, almost every day that these guys travel, they're going to leave their name someplace. Most of the time it just happens to be on a tree, but he's on his way to the top because his whole purpose here is to survey the country from this high promontory. When you walk to the top, you try to imagine that there were no trees here.
These are replicas of the canoes that Clark built.
He wrote in his journal, "This rock I ascended, and from its top had a most extensive view in every direction. After satisfying myself sufficient in this delightful prospect of this extensive country around, I descended and proceeded on."
Well, here we are, Billings, Montana. Northern Hotel. It's now a Radisson. Let's go in.
I was 16 when my dad had his first open heart surgery. During his recovery, I stood in as the breadwinner and with 12 bags of dress samples worked the Northern Territory. It was here in the Golden Bell restaurant that I had ventured downstairs for dinner. Eating alone, especially for dinner in a nice restaurant, can make one a little self-conscious. I ordered the duck flambé. First came the soup, then the salad, and then the lights went off in the restaurant, a spotlight illuminated the kitchen doors, and a bare-chested man in a turban appeared with a large mallet ringing a gong. Behind him, a waiter dressed like something out of the Arabian Nights rushed out with a sword shoved up a flaming duck. Though my booth was closest to the kitchen, the waiter paraded through the entire restaurant, braising the trussed mallard up and down with a torch. The flamed fowl finally flopped into my plate, and the entire restaurant erupted in joyous applause. Scarred by the experience, from that time on, I've avoided birthday cakes brought to the table and preferred the quiet of room service when traveling alone. Little has changed since that fateful evening 31 years earlier. And to bear witness to my story, we encountered Marshall, who had just finished playing the piano at Sunday brunch.
You know, I play the piano here, and there was hardly a month goes by when some couple from someplace come over and said, you know, he proposed to me in the booth right over there. And, you know, it's so much history, see.
As the capital of Montana, Helena's rough and tumble days as a mining boomtown have long since passed. However, its frontier heritage still glistens in a 21st century renaissance along its main street, Last Chance Gulch.
We're standing here in downtown Helena, Montana, in front of the Placer Hotel, which is now rehabbed as an office. And here to recount an old family tale of when my father was in the fire. Years ago, Dad was staying here up on the second floor. You can sort of see the balconies there. And he was woken up in the middle of the night, and there were people yelling, sirens outside saying, hey, there's a big fire. And sure enough, he looks around and there's smoke everywhere. And he opens up, stands out on the balcony, looks down, and there's a guy screaming at him, saying, buddy, you better jump or you're gonna fry. So with that, he bagged up all his sample bags, threw them out the window with the idea he was going to jump on them. Ultimately, the fireman said that he did not have to jump. He could put a towel around his head and walk out through the smoke, which he did. But in the meantime, a bartender from the bar next door had helped put all the sample bags up in a pile for him to jump on. And he said, hey, buddy, if these are damaged, I can sell these to all the whores at the whorehouse up the street. So that didn't happen. But the only other casualty was the family adding machine, because when Dad threw it out the window onto the sample bags, ever since then, it was 10 cents off in all its calculations. So that is the story of the Great Placer Hotel fire.
And how do cities get their names? In the case of Great Falls, Montana, it's for the large falls on the Missouri River that in 1805 Lewis and Clark had to portage around. Today, you have to use your imagination as to the fall's original greatness, for a hydroelectric dam now sits atop the river's bedrock. If Americans are the gold standard of world-class consumers, then our northern neighbors in Edmonton, Alberta could rightfully give us a run for our money, or maybe their money too. The serenely named West Edmonton Mall holds clear title at being the largest mall in the world with over 800 stores. Dining and shopping opportunities abound. It's a whale of a good time for everyone. You can take to the ice, or choose to ride the rails on the world's largest indoor triple loop roller coaster. For perfect your putting below a European shopper's wonderland. Then off for a dip in the tropical wave pool. The big question is, where to next? Perhaps a suite at the Fantasyland Hotel. An entire vacation, all under one roof. The rough-hewn Canadian Rockies are protected by a linked series of national parks. Jasper and Banff are the best known. Jasper has been touched less by development than Banff. Its valleys are narrow and deeply cut from glacial runoff. A stubborn Pacific cold front brought rain and snow to many of our hiking days. We were thankful for quick moments of sunlight, yet found great beauty and a sense of nature's mystery in cloud-shrouded mountains. The biggest surprise on our hike to Mount Edith Cavell and the aptly named Angel Glacier was the thunder of small avalanches which spilled misty waterfalls of snow down to the valley below. Edith Cavell was an English nurse in World War I working for the Belgian Red Cross. She was executed for helping captive soldiers escape and was nicknamed the Angel of Mercy. Driving south from Jasper to Banff, we drove through the Columbia ice fields and stopped for a brief hike at the Athabasca Glacier. While there continues to be debate about the cause of global warming, the effects of the process are dramatically evident. A few miles away from the Athabasca Glacier, we hiked up Parker Ridge for a grand view of the Saskatchewan Glacier. Well above timberline, we climbed to 7,500 feet, the same altitude as our living room floor and home. Here in Lake Louise Village, I decided to test the theory that just like home in Vail, people often don't think that there's good fishing in town. In my first Canadian fishing outing, I caught 6 cutthroat trout here on the Pipestone River, less than 100 yards from where I bought my license. It's fun visiting new places, and doubly so when you can meet up with friends. A coordinated travel plan with John and Debbie Thibault and their new son Joshua was so well timed that our rooms at the Chateau Lake Louise were right across the hall from each other. In the late 1800s, as the Canadian Pacific Railroad worked its way across the continent, the potential for tourism became evident with each new right-of-way that was mapped. In less than a blink of an eye in geologic time, the Chateau Lake Louise has changed dramatically through the decades. Yet for all of man's so-called improvements, the charms of nature are still the main event.
Reason
When I first came to Glacier in 1967, the west side of the park here was completely engulfed by flames with a forest fire. Today, as you look around, you can see just how everything in 34 years has really grown back. So it's sort of an irony that I didn't get to see much of the west side of the park then, and with today's weather, I'm not going to probably see much of this side of the park again.
This is my confirmation class picture, and this is Jack Meyer, who we all called Ski. Ski and I had known each other since we were 7, but lost touch after high school. 30 years later, we met Ski, his wife Shelley, and their children in Missoula. He's a partner in a local accounting firm and was a gracious after-hours tour guide as we walked the streets of downtown Missoula.
Liquor up front.
Great game, the triple, the home run, and the double, and then getting that guy out at first base.
Relentless. That's the tag at home, don't forget that.
The tag at home, yeah. Jim's going.
Jimmy, the big Indian guy. Jimmy doesn't have a prayer. Boom, boom, you're done. Go sit down.
Sun Valley is one of America's oldest ski areas. It was the last stop of our trip, more like a drive-by moment where we had lunch and one last childhood travel memory.
Howdy, folks, let's go for a ride. Get your favorite one to sit by your side. Cuddle up in a sleigh, giddy up, Nellie Gray, and away we go. While you listen to the sleigh bells ring, you're yodeling to your baby. You'll feel nice and warm no matter how cold it may be. Take a look at little Jack and Jill. They ski down a hill, that's a snowplow turn.
And look, there's a still on the hill.
When you're down, it's a thrill to go up again. Everybody ought to learn to ski, for that is how we first met. We were that Jack and Jill that came down the hill. When I looked at you, my heart took a thrill.
Take a thrill on a hill, it's a thrill that I can't forget.
It happened in Sun Valley, not so very long ago. There were sunbeams in the snow, and a twinkle in your eye. I remember, oh so clearly, that you nearly passed me by. Then it happened in Sun Valley, when you slipped and fell, and so did I. fell and so did I. Now every year we go back and then we recall that fall and that moment when we were there on a hill. So we both take a spill and we're Jack and Jim again.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends.